And welcome inside our DETV studios here in Wilmington, Delaware. It's a special 302 Sports, Delaware Live Sports, and DETV 2023 basketball breakdown. So before we get into it, let's introduce everyone here at the desk. We start on my right with Jason Winchell. On the left, the coach, Bill Harmon. Appreciate you joining us. And then also here to my right, Mike Lang. To the left, Nick Halliday, making a rare on-camera appearance today, usually behind the scenes.
Feels weird.
And then, as always, to my left, Pat Garianis. And we are here to talk a little bit of high school basketball. We had the bracket reveal on Friday for the girls and the boys. So now it's time to talk a little bit about it. Let's dive in and get into some of these matchups. But, guys, first off, how are we doing? Happy to be back in studio for a nice, busy week of basketball ahead this week.
Well, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. As always, I enjoy working with this crew quite a bit. We've been practicing, obviously, for our game against Dover, and I'm really excited about the tournament, not only for us, but for all the teams. I think it's going to be a great couple weeks of basketball here in Delaware.
Absolutely. Jason, Mike, thanks for joining us today. A busy week, both girls and boys action for you guys this week. You ready to talk a little boys basketball here to start?
Absolutely. I'm always ready to talk some basketball. My favorite time of the year.
There we go. It's about that time, almost March Madness, if you will. Pat, I know we were talking a little bit earlier this week. You were reminiscing about your old trip to the Bonfire Reader Center, your old playoff run back in the day.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Coach, we beat St. Mark's on a tip-in back in 2011 to get to the...
Sadly, I remember that, Patrick.
Yeah, you're not kidding. But yeah, the memory popped up. I had the first round bye and played, I believe we played... Oh, it ended up being St. Mark's. You guys, I think, beat Dover that year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But yeah, the memories are flowing, man. They're flowing.
Well, as they should, because it is that time of the year. Again, brackets and seedings released on Friday. A little controversy there, though, as we had a little bit of a reseeding to go on Saturday. Just here quickly, Mike and Jason, what took place there was a little bit of a tiebreaker, I guess, and then they went back and redid some of those seeds in the 4, 5, 6, 7 range.
Yeah, so basically the way they have calculated tiebreakers for years, they changed up a little bit this year, and it ended up affecting the seedings. I think the initial thing was they said a tiebreaker calculation discrepancy or something, but the big thing is it moved Salesianum to 5, I believe, right, and Tower Hill to 4.
Well, it moved 3 teams. Appo.
And Appo did move too.
Appo went from it was 4. Sally's was 4. Appo was 5, and Tower was 6. Tower went from 6 to 4. Sally's went from 4 to 5, and Appo went from 5 to 6.
So a little bit of shake-up there after the Friday seeding reveal. So now let's dive into some of these matchups, and let's just get things started. And before that, a special thanks to Ivan Thomas and Dennis Pritchett, who are running the 1s and 2s here today in the studio. We appreciate that. And guys, let's start at the top of the men's bracket here with the 16 seed Conrad Red Bulls. Don't do that, Mike, here, who are led by head coach Chris McLean. And they're going to be going up against the 17-seeded Mount Pleasant Green Knights, who are 13-7. So, guys, let's start there here at the top. Mount Pleasant and Conrad. Coach, go to you here to start things off. Conrad and Mount Pleasant, what stands out to you about this one?
Well, first of all, Conrad is extremely well coached. This is a team that loves to rely on the three-pointer. They have 3 or 4 different players. They bring off a couple three-point shooters off the bench. They want to play an up-tempo style. A lot of green lights, meaning everybody can shoot the 3, but they've really had an outstanding year. They've had some very good wins. Chris McLean, their head coach, I think has done an outstanding job. As I mentioned, they're very well coached. But this is a dangerous team. They play good defense. They run some nice sets, but their reliance on the 3, if you do not defend the 3 and chase them off, they're going to be really difficult to beat. They've got so many options, and they actually shoot it pretty well from range.
And Nick, your alma mater, Mount Pleasant, going up against a team that you have had a chance to check out a few times this year. We've done a game in that gym at Conrad. It can get pretty loud in there, crazy environment. What stands out to you here?
I mean, you're right. It is a little bit more intense than it is at a Mount Pleasant game, but Mount Pleasant still always has big crowds when they're there too. The difference is Conrad is a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter, and it's going to be a fun environment. I think it's 2 teams that are kind of similar. Mount Pleasant lost to them earlier in the season by 20 points, so it's something they got to look at, and I'm sure they're worried about and going back and looking over that tape and making sure they're checking their P's and Q's and seeing what they did wrong that game because they didn't do much right?
Yeah, Pat,
So-
things typically get to tighten up during when
Yeah.
we meet again. And they got a guy that I know you like a lot, and that is, of course, Jalen Horsey.
Yeah, Jalen Horsey's one of the top scorers in the state of Delaware. I mean, he was Player of the Year in the conference. He hit 55 three-pointers this season. As Coach alluded to, their reliance on the three-point shot. Got to see them play against my alma mater, St. E's, this season, and I actually got to see him twice. We actually did a game.
That's right, yeah,
He
really.
was under the weather
Against
that game.
DMA, too, yeah.
He was under the weather that game, came in, didn't do much, but then he came out the following weekend, played against St. Elizabeth, and the kid's got unlimited range. He's got good length. He can dribble and get to the rim. He's just an all-around complete player, and he really makes that team go. And then the senior point guard as well, Julius Russell, another guy to keep an eye on as well. Again, thanks to the coaches for supplying us with the statistics. How about 88 assists already in the season, so he's getting the job done on that offense.
Yeah, that good for a broken record as well, 88. That breaks the school record for Conrad, Nick.
They also have the freshman point guard that can light it up too, Star. So pay attention. When Coach said that they're going to go from the three, and if you're not out there sticking them, they're going to shoot it. There's a lot of green lights, and he's right.
Now, guys, if they do not shoot the ball well, I saw Mount Pleasant at the end of the year. They have two big men that I really like. A sophomore, Darnell Lloyd, and a senior, Sergio Solis, who looks like he's had some knee issues, but he's back playing, and they really can present some problems for Conrad inside. Conrad not particularly big, so they want to make it an up and down contest. And the great thing about the way I saw Mount Pleasant playing, they played under control, played at their tempo, and really did a good job defensively. And I think they have the length to combat some of that three-point shooting. So I really expect a really good ball game. So I like your alma mater, not necessarily to win the game, but I just think they've had a good season. They've got some nice players, and those bigs are something you're going to have to deal with.
A little more seasoned too, right? I think their roster's a little older, a little bit more depth. So
You're going to like Anthony Silberry. He a football player. He is a terrific
Oh, yeah.
athlete.
Tough
he
kid.
took over the end of the Glasgow game, where Glasgow was desperately trying to get into the tournament. They did not make it, but he was terrific at the free throw line, controlled the tempo and the pace of the game. A really outstanding player. Unfortunately, he's a senior, so you won't get to see him next year.
And again, to Coach's point, that last game of the regular season against the Force, they made 23 pointers, shot 52% from beyond the arc. Going to be tough to beat a team like that. And of course, they are 10-2 since Christmas break, so Conrad's starting to get hot here. But let's talk now, guys, a little bit about Mount Pleasant. Obviously, new coach here. Senior leadership, when talking to him today, he said it's beginning to gel at the right time. They're really starting to come together as a team. Nick mentioned, or Coach mentioned Anthony Sidbury as well as Ronnie Potts. Those guys are veterans. They've been there for a while, and now a chance to make a run here in the postseason.
Yeah, they're going to have to use that height. As Bill mentioned, Conrad love to run, and I saw Conrad at Archmere, and the Hawks did a good job slowing them down. I think Conrad won by 7, I think, to win the Diamond State. But Mount has guys who block shots, and they can play above the rim a little bit. That's really not Conrad's game. Conrad's the track meet type of game, but it should be a good one. I think that 20-point game, Nick, is kind of an outlier. I wouldn't expect a 20-point game tomorrow night with the 16 and 17.
No, not in the playoffs.
And not in the playoffs. And by the way, and you guys, we've all done games there. What an atmosphere out there at Conrad. This is one of my favorite gyms to watch. I love watching
It's
games
an old
there.
school place.
Yes.
It's got a lot of class and charm. I couldn't agree with you more.
You are
A difficult
sitting
place
right
to
on
go
the
play.
floor. It's perfect. It's a great
Nostalgic.
place to watch it.
Yeah.
It certainly is. And again, when you talk about Mount Pleasant, Jason, some guys, we mentioned Ronnie Potts, Anthony Sidbury.
I was going to ask, Ronnie Potts, he provides that leadership. He runs the show, 11 points a game, 3 assists. When he's in control of the game and not turning the ball, he won't turn the ball over much. And that's key when you're playing on the road in the playoffs. Take care of the basketball.
That's right. It's going to be a good one. 16 and 17. Anthony Sidbury, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. Naomi Scott averaging 10 points a game, so 2 green knights in double figures. And Darnell Lloyd, 8 points, 5 rebounds to go along with 2 blocks to round out that lineup for Mount Pleasant. So 16 Conrad, 17 Mount Pleasant. The first thing we're talking about tonight, but that gets underway, of course, tomorrow night. But the winner of that one, guys, has a tough task ahead of them. They're going to take on the number 1 overall seed, the Middletown Cavaliers, guys, 17-2. We've had a chance to check them out here as you see the graphic on your screen. They've had a phenomenal year under Coach Aziz Ali. I had a chance, Nick, to check them out. I saw you guys there at the end on Saturday in that Blue Hen Championship game, and they were going up against Howard, a team they had beat pretty good there during the regular season. It was tight there in the first half. They were able to get things going and pull away late in that one, but they've looked really good all year, guys. Pat, their only losses to Malvern Prep and Sally's on the season.
Yeah, you got to see that game against Malvern over at the Chase Fieldhouse. Now, this is an extremely deep team. They play the game the right way. At least they've started to the second half of the year, really starting to share the ball. And I know when we had a chance to do, Glenn and I did a game of theirs, and we asked Coach Ali that, and he talked about that's kind of been the focus for them, right? They've brought some talent in. They've also grown some talent from within the program. And getting those guys to mesh and share the basketball and put their egos aside has been something that they've been able to accomplish. And they're a team that I would really keep an eye on. Obviously, they're the number 1 seed, but that Sally's game seemed like it was a little bit of I won't want to say fluke. I can't think of a better word for it, but they struggled to shoot in that game. And Malvern was no joke, and that was early in the season, starting to mesh with each other. So, yeah, this team from top to bottom has been phenomenal this season, and they're going to be a tough out. There's no doubt about it.
And Coach, one thing that stands out to me in doing some of those games is the length and size of Middletown across the board. Those starting 5, big, long guys, but all skilled as well, and that, they're 17-2.
For a team that scores 68 points a game, they give up 51, and that's that length you're talking about. They've got versatile players that can play 1 through 5. They can switch if they want. They're very aggressive. They can press you. What I was most impressed with that team was they went on the road and beat Seaford by 15 down at Seaford. And let me tell you something, talk about a tough environment, absolutely. Pat, you made a great point about the Sally's game. It was clearly an anomaly game. They just shot incredibly poorly for a good team off night, but that's somewhat of a credit to Sally's. But this is a really tough team. They play well together. The balance that you mentioned earlier, I think, is really important. The sheer fact that 5 or 6 guys can share the burden of the scoring makes them really difficult to defend. This is a team that's built and playing well and ready to go deep into the tournament, I think.
Nick, you've seen Middletown a bunch also this year. Anything that we haven't said yet that stands out to you about this squad?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with Coach over here. I mean, they're deep, they're disciplined, they play well. I think Amir Height really solidified that team, really took control, lessened the turnovers, which is something that we saw a lot from them last year. And their defense, when they turn it on, it's tough to do anything with. I mean, we saw them, like he said, I mean, they stymied that Seaford offense down there at home in that tough environment. And then they just did it against Howard this weekend. So he's right. This is a team that's built to go deep in the playoffs.
And guys, again, another thing that stands out to me about them, I've seen them now a few times, is you have to play a almost flawless game to beat them. That's what Howard did in the first half. They kept it close, but as soon as you start to make mistakes, Middletown does it, and they can go on these runs, and they've looked really good all year. They shoot 50% as a team on the season, 71% from the free throw line, and they got 5 guys that average at least 5 rebounds a game.
Yeah, they're, as Pat said, deep, and they all can score, they all can rebound. By, like you saying, all their starters have over 5 rebounds a game. That's pretty impressive. I like the foul shooting aspect of that game too. In a close game, those win games. So a very balanced team from top to bottom, and their defense can get them back in any game too. The game they didn't shoot well against Sally's, their defense kept them in there into the third quarter, and then Sally's pulled away late.
And again, one thing that Glenn likes to talk about as well is Glenn Frazier unable to be with us tonight, but they can slow it down, play in the half court, but they can also take it up in transition and score fast as well. So they're a team that can literally do it all, Mike. Are they the team to beat? Obviously, they're number 1 seed, but in most years, there's a lot of skepticism surrounding that top seed. Is Middletown the clear-cut team to beat this year?
I think so, but I think they're going to have some challenges along the way. We'll look as we go along. We'll look at the bracket, but they have the way it lines up. I think they a quarterfinal with Stanford. I think so. So now that's a couple rounds away, but just looking down the road a little bit, even the other team that we're looking at next, Caravel's the 9 seed. Could be playing them in a quarterfinal. So if Middletown gets to a quarterfinal, so we'll see what happens. But they have Amir Height, Amir Cunningham, Jaden Rogers. The Amir's and the Jadens, right? Jaden Rogers,
right.
Jaden McGee.
That's right.
Tyron Henson, and just name after name. These guys come off that bench, and Coach, all you can go 8 or 9 deep, and that's a real luxury in high school basketball.
17-2, they get the top seed in a first-round bye. Of course, they will await the winner of Conrad and Mount Pleasant. Well, let's keep it going down the bracket, and let's head to the 24-seeded Cape Henlopen Vikings at 12-8. They'll be meeting up tomorrow night with the 9-seeded Caravel Buccaneers down in Bear, Delaware. Let's start with Cape Henlopen, guys. They grabbed that 24 spot after that huge tiebreaker, I believe, at the end of the tournament. That really shuffled around a lot of teams near that tail end. They are led by head coach Steve Ray. 5-4 in their last 9 games. Wins over Dover, Sussex Tech, Milford, Sussex Central, and Smyrna. And 2 guys to look out for, Drew Zimmerman and Tyrone Tolson for Cape Henlopen, Pat. But they've been getting things together here as of late. They grabbed that 24 spot, and that's a dangerous 24 seed.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, they're definitely, I feel, that 24 seed is not reflective of how talented this team is. Got to see them this season down at Polytech, and that was one of the games of the year. And that was Drew Zimmerman, kind of like his first game, really back to 100% from a knee injury, and he really carried the team in that game, scored over 30 points, and was just making the right basketball play at every time. That's what stands out to me the most about him is he's just a cool, calm, and collective, true point guard. Very, very fun to watch. And then Tolson, who's the transfer from Dover, he can fill it up as well. So they're a team that, can make some noise as a 24 seed. Typically, you wouldn't think that a 24 seed could make, would rattle some cages. This 24 seed's dangerous in my opinion.
And they certainly are, guys. And a little preview: we will be there live tomorrow night on the NFHS network for this game between.
It's on YouTube.
On YouTube between Cape Henlopen and Caravel. NFHS as we progress forward into the playoffs. But you can catch it on Delaware Live Sports tomorrow night. Coach, Caravel and Cape Henlopen, we've had a chance to do a couple Caravel games. I haven't seen as much of the Vikings as I would have liked to. What stands out to you when you look down at Cape Henlopen in this matchup?
First of all, they're extremely well coached. Stephen Ray does a terrific job. He substitutes a lot. He plays a lot of different combinations, so I think that defensively, especially if you're playing man, makes it very difficult. You've got to be very cognizant of your matchups. Number 2, they want to play an up-tempo game, though they can control the tempo with their defense. They have 2 bigs that I like. They're not necessarily their big scorers, but they have good size inside. They have some rim protection. Patrick talked about Zimmerman. In the game I saw, I've watched Cape on tape about 4 times getting ready for Dover. Cape is really good with Zimmerman when he plays. Zimmerman's got a great feel for the game, a high IQ player, has a lot of talent. But this Tolson is a special player. He can make a lot of different plays for them in the open court and in the half-court game. So I'm thinking that Stephen Ray wants to play this a little closer to the vest, maybe not as fast-paced as he would normally play. I think he would like to slow Caravel down, and I think they have the capacity to do it. A really well-coached team who's playing well together. They had to battle themselves in, as we've already alluded to, and even though they ended up 5-4, they had a couple big wins down the way, especially the win over Dover was a huge game, and played very well in that game.
I mean, listen, when Zimmerman's healthy, he's one of the better point guards in the state. Believe me. I mean, he put a show on when we were down there against Polytech. Coach alluded to a little bit about the big men. Jacob Schell is an underrated player for Cape Henlopen. I think he had like 16, I guess, against Appo, and all of them were 2-point buckets and free throw. He also had a posterizing dunk in that game. Coach is right. They have a couple of big men that are good role players. Now, when you talk about them playing against Caravel, I think they're going to have to try to slow the ball down and control a little more. Because if you let Caravel run, we've already saw what happened. Laurel came up. Laurel tried to run with Caravel. Didn't work. That's a tough team when you get Dom, Clemens, those guys going. They can shoot the lights out, and they're going to want to run and light the scoreboard up. So I think it's going to come down to Zimmerman and Tolson controlling the game for Cape.
Nick, do you like comps?
Oh, of course. I do.
Shell reminds me of one of Nick's favorite players, Tyler Hansborough.
Yeah.
He's got crazy touch around the rim.
He's a beast on the boards too.
Donovan.
That's good. I'm doing that game tomorrow night. That's good to know.
We'll remember that one.
That's
Pat.
right. We'll remember that for the podcast tomorrow night. But Jason and Mike, let's now talk a little bit about the 9 seed, the Caravel Buccaneers. And you talk about tough regular season schedule. It seems like they played, if not all of the top 10 teams, at least in the Delaware Live sports rankings. Coach Tobin getting them some good games. They've won 8 out of the last 10, but those 2 losses that they couldn't pull out, Middletown and Sally. So 2 really tough teams there, and they're led by the big 3.
And both of them were on the road at
right.
Middletown and Sally's. Yeah, they're that's one thing. They're battle tested, this Caravel team. They played a tough schedule. It was funny, they were the common opponent in that 4-way tie of seeds 4 through 7. They played all 4 of those teams. So it's a very good team. What I like is another good free throw shooting team. Do not foul them. They shoot 71% on the season, which is pretty good. And they shoot, they play great defense, and Coach Tobin has the experience. And they're at home.
That's the key.
That's
I
right.
think a player to watch for Caravel who's not listed here, but we really should watch, is the freshman Trevor Webster.
Yeah.
Gives him a great inside presence against somebody like Shell, who's going to go inside. Webster is he's about 6'3", 6'4", and he's just kind of emerged this season. You hear the big name John. I love John Clemens' game, by the way. John Clemens, Don Wyatt, Miles White, those guys. They have some bruisers inside with a guy like Owen Robinson, but I just like Webster a little bit. I've gotten a chance to see him. I saw Caravel 3 or 4 times this year. He's been a lot of fun to watch. And Don Wyatt did not play against St. E's, and they needed overtime to beat St. Elizabeth last week in the last game of the season. So you see how important a guy like Wyatt is, really controlling the tempo out there. But I'm excited about this game. This should be a fantastic game.
Yeah, it should be. And Pat, this was a team in Caravel that you talked a lot about before the season, right? That was one of the squads you were really paying attention to. Yeah. And that was because of these 3 guys listed here. You talk about big 3s throughout the state of Delaware. This group is right up there with the best.
Yeah, they may be in terms of how much they are dependent upon. Taking a look down, Clemens, 18 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. Wyatt, a tick under 16 points per game, 3 assists and 2 steals. Runs the show, maybe the best point guard in the state. And then you got Miles White, who's a dead-eye shooter, in my opinion. 14 points per game, 4 assists, 4.5 rebounds. They depend on those 3 to really carry the load scoring. And honestly, they're the ones that are settled down. You talked about how tough the schedule was. I never really seen these guys get too out of control. These guys have been there. They've been through the tournament before. Clemens, he's impossible to guard, especially if he's hitting. All 3 of those guys can hit from deep. This team's going to be dangerous for sure. They're fun to watch, and like you said, those 3 players, I put them up against the top 3 from anyone else in the state, honestly.
And there you have it, 24 Cape Henlopen taking on 9 Caravel. That game tomorrow night. And what does the winner get? They get a matchup with the 8-seeded Sanford Warriors. Again, that shuffle up there in the rankings has Sanford now with the 8 seed. So they will be taking on the winner of Caravel and Cape Henlopen. Sanford guys 14-5. We know the new head coach Ty Perry, I believe in his 2nd season, obviously there with the Warriors. And Coach Ty Perry, former Delaware Bluehead, a guy that we've had a chance to work with a little bit in the broadcast side of things. Now he's back coaching the Warriors.
Ty does an outstanding job. He is a great coach. He's a terrific motivator. He's played the game at a very high level. He himself was a terrific point guard, so you would expect the point guard play at Sanford to be outstanding, much as it was under Stan Waterman, and it absolutely is. Deon Polk, he can get anywhere he wants on the court. Their big man, Chris Stanford, is back. He'd had some issues earlier in the year. He missed, I believe, 8 games. He's back and healthy and playing very well. But I think their most underrated player is Sean Forrest. He is long. He can shoot the 3. He gives them size inside, and they have a lot of size inside.
They do.
He is a really smart player. He was the key to a big victory they had on the road at Tower Hill, and I thought he was outstanding. Talk about a high IQ player. His father's a coach on the team. Fran Forrest was a great player himself, and he's really learned his lessons well. So this is a really solid team. They have a deep bench. They're extremely well coached, and they, like Pat mentioned earlier, and Frazier, they're a team that can play fast and they can play slow, and that really makes them difficult to handle in the state tournament.
And again, for Sanford, Mike and Jay, they've won 9 of 10 games. That only loss coming to Caravel, a game we did in Bear, Delaware, 61-41. As Nick mentioned earlier, Caravel got out running, and Sanford was not able to keep up there, but they get the 8 seed, a first-round bye. They got a talented roster, and they'll await the winner of Cape Henlopen and Caravel. What stands out to you about the Warriors?
Well, it's funny, the players that Bill mentioned, the one he didn't mention, Tommy Vaughn, might be the most athletic guy on that team. He can jump through the ceiling, and he's a leading scorer, but it's just, usually you have that Sanford player that just jumps out at you. They don't have like that guy,
That Nana or
that guy,
Jair,
Nana
yeah.
or
Jair.
Jair or any of those.
They're not a
players.
Division I, potentially Big East or somebody like that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, keep the list goes on and
but
on.
if you underestimate these guys, they'll smoke you. They are a very talented team.
I'm a big fan of Dayon Polk. As you say, he runs the show there for Sanford. Started off his career, big defensive player. And, the offense started to come, and he's still got that great defensive intensity still here as he's now a senior. But Sanford, Jay, they get that 8 seed and a first-round bye for the Warriors. Just a tough schedule for them as well this season. How do you think that they did towards the tail end?
Yeah, they've had some impressive wins, beating Tower Hill twice, Lazy Annam in there. Like you said, they're only lost to Caravel in their last 9 games. They really, they're a team that's not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to go in and play your best basketball to beat them, especially when they're at home in that tiny environment there at Sanford. So, it's a great team, great coach, and I think we mentioned it before to how wide open it is this year.
Yeah,
and,
really.
and they're,
First time tonight at least, though.
They're Sanford's, and they're at 8,
And Nick, you do the top 10 plays of the week, and one guy that seems to live on that highlight reel is Jaden Taylor. He's dunking, it seems like 5 balls a game. What have you seen from him this year?
I know he said Tommy Vaughn, but Jaden Taylor, talk about athleticism. 6'8", 6'9", and jumps out the gym too. He's he's got an offer to Delaware already. He's got to be the best sophomore in the state. Just looking at it, hands down. I think the big thing about Sanford is getting back Chris Stanford, like Coach talked about. Having lost him for 8 games, he brings that twin tower size in there for them, and I think they finally got their team complete. So it's going to be a tough team to play in that next round.
Cape Henlopen and Caravel, the 20-9 winner gets the 8 seed, the Sanford Warriors. So let's keep it moving down the bracket, and now to the number 20 seed, the Del Castle Cougars, coming in at 9-11, taking on the 13-seeded Wilmington Friends Quakers, who had a great regular season. They finish up 13-5. Guys, let's start with the Del Castle Cougars. Here's the matchup on your screen. Del Castle, as you talked, speaking with Coach Chris Laws this week, he said last year they were dead last in the conference. This season they finished 3rd behind Middletown and Appo. They were the district champs, and having played all 3 teams going 2-1. So what a turnaround, Pat, it was for the Del Castle Cougars. And they played most of the season missing a lot of those key guys due to injuries.
Yeah, and the Cougars, a little bit of a bounce back season. Historically, they've tended to be a pretty solid tournament team and have been able to advance in years past. So it's good to see Del Castle back in the tournament. The 9-11 record, you can discard that, right? This team's battle tested as well, playing in that tough conference. So they're a team that they've got some skill. Aiden Laws is a senior guard, averaging 13-4 and 2 steals. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a guy to keep an eye on. Rashid Ushery, who missed 7 games this year, he's maybe the wild card in this one. 14 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. He can really get it done. And then the junior guard, J.J. Gordy, kind of the third cog there. There's got another guy who missed games, as they've talked about. He missed first 12 games of the season. So, they got a team that 9-11. But again, let's keep an eye on this team. They can make some noise.
Nick, you seen anything with Del Castle this year? Been able to check out any of the Cougars with that busy schedule of yours?
I've seen a lot of highlights. I've seen a lot. I know that the Laws is a very tough point guard. His dad played at Temple. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree there. They're going to be a tough team to play coming into the playoffs. And I think it's 2 contrasting differences in this game with the way Wilmington Friends plays versus the way Del Castle plays. And it's, the thing that stands out to me at this game is Del Castle, you have a lot of basketball players, and Wilmington Friends, you have a lot of football players.
That's right, yeah.
So we'll see how this one turns out, but I do know the Friends has the lengths on them because they got 4 kids that are about 6'3" and above that it's tough to shoot over top of those guys. So they're going to have to be crafty in this game. Delcastle's going to have to figure out how to score. And I don't think it's going to be much from the inside.
Yeah, Coach, you heard Pat talk about 9-11 record, but a decent schedule. They were in all of those games that they ended up losing. What have you seen from Delcastle this season?
The intangible is they played 7 of their last 8 games were against tournament teams. So they are tournament tested. When I talk about Seaford, Howard, William Penn, St. George's, I mean, they played a really difficult schedule at the end. They were able to beat, I think, a really fine William Penn team, and they beat a good St. George's team on the road. So this is a team that really had to battle in at the end of the year. They had adversity throughout with the injuries. I think they're kind of melding at the exact right time. It's a great turnaround story, and I think Coach Laws has to be very proud of his effort no matter how this game goes against Friends. They've had a little difficulty on the road, and in their losses, their defense has let them down. In their wins, they've controlled the tempo and played the games in the mid to low 50s, which I think will be essential for them against Friends School tomorrow night.
And again, great free throw shooting team. A lot of these guys up near 80% from the free throw line for Delcastle, and you heard from Coach Laws. He said now that these guys are all healthy, we're starting to get healthy, we are ready to shake things up. So that from the Delcastle Cougars, and that takes us into the 13th-seeded Wilmington Friends Quakers, guys. What a season overall here athletically for the Quakers in the fall. D2 or Division II football champions. Congratulations to Coach Harmon here at the end of the desk.
Yes.
And now in the basketball season, 13-5 under Corey DeShield, 7-3 in their last 10, and they grabbed the 13th seed here in the tournament.
Yeah, this is a team that Nick mentioned, the height. If you think Robbie Tattersall is only a football player, you think again he's a really, really good basketball player as well. Just saw Robbie last week. He had the scratch on the nose and on the cheek from the game at Tower Hill. So he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up. His brother Ryan is really good. They have guys like Ish Dobson in the middle. There are a lot of football players on this team. They're big, and they're big. You know, they're big, tall, and they're big. And they'll be playing at home, which I think is an advantage to them. They're going to be in their home gym, which is can get a little loud in there. Delcastle's gym also been to several games there. It's kind of nuts. So maybe it won't bother them so much, but. They're tall and they're disciplined and they don't make many mistakes. So it should be a good one. It strikes me as how that's the main thing that sticks out to me about Friends is they're tall, but you think of a bunch of football players, they can also play basketball. They almost beat Tower at Tower last week of the season, so it should be a good one.
Yeah, Jason, what stands out to you in this matchup here between Delcastle and the Quakers?
Well, like everyone says, the Quakers' height is an advantage for the game. I also think they want to keep it low, keep the score low. Their Friends plays great defense, battle tested, playing in that independent conference, and that's 4 or 5 losses for 2 independent conference teams in Archmere on the road at Archmere. So a very talented team and a team that will not beat themselves. You have to go and execute and play a flawless game to beat Friends.
So 20 Delcastle taking on the 13th seed Wilmington Friends, and the winner of that one, guys, earns themselves a date with the defending state champions. That is the number 4 seeded Tower Hill Hillers under head coach and state champ Patrick Kaiser. And guys, we all had a chance to see them last year in the tournament. As you take a look on your screen, 16-4. They grabbed that 4 seed after all that shuffling earlier this week that we alluded to. I don't know if I've seen a team, including the Delaware Blue Hens, shoot the way that Tower Hill shot at the Bob Carpenter Center last year. The championship coach, we had a chance to do that broadcast. I mean, I had seen nothing like it, and here they are back to get a first-round bye, a 4 seed. The Shepherd brothers, they're still there. They got a chance to win it again.
Well, that was an amazing effort last year. It was one of the greatest games I've ever seen at the high school level in the state of Delaware in terms of efficiency and just terrific play. This team has carried over. They certainly missed the length of the young man that is not with them from last year, the long-range shooter.
That's right.
Yep, exactly. He was terrific. But the Shepherd twins are excellent. You've got to have a solution for those two. Dean probably can get to the basket as well as anybody in the state, and he's a terrific free throw shooter, as is his brother Dylan. Dylan, best improvement this year, he plays off the bounce. He was pretty much known as a three-point shooter, but I've liked the evolution of his game. But the key to this team, beside Pat Kaiser's really solid coaching, is their role players really understand their role and are excellent being efficient at it. And Somerville, I love the young man that comes off the bench. Charlie Habgood is terrific. They've got the baseball pitcher Coyne. I mean, these guys really know how to work their games around the two outstanding players. They can score themselves. A big guy inside, Maselli, not real tall, but he's a tough physical guy. So they really do a good job of understanding what they have to do to help their team win. And this is a team that'll be a tough out because of the two players, but also they're role players who really understand exactly what they have to do to help their team win.
And Mike, over to you here quickly. Can Tower Hill, can they do it again? They get the 4 seed or first round bye. Can they do it again? Can they make another run to the state championship with the Shepherd brothers?
Well, I think so because nobody has figured out a way to stop Dean or Dylan. And these guys are scoring a combined, do quick math, 38 points a game. That's somebody's going to find a way to shut them down, or they're going to be an extremely tough out the entire way through. If Friends should advance, one advantage they have, they've played them twice already this year, so they should know exactly what they're getting into. They played in that building, in the Carpenter Fieldhouse, so they know the atmosphere in there. They were just there a couple weeks, maybe a week ago at the end of the season. So another player that they have that I like is the freshman Kevin Coleman. I think he's going to be an outstanding player moving forward. But you get to a tournament, sometimes, with the freshmen, you just don't know what to expect. But he looks like he's a young man a little ahead of his time. I think he'll be just fine.
And Pat, we talked about the run they made last year, but this year, just a couple losses. Sanford actually beat them twice. They lose to Malvern Prep, who we've seen is getting some games in against a lot of these Delaware teams, and then a loss to Salesianum, but they've won 10 of 12 coming into what would be a first-round bye here in the tournament.
Yeah, they're getting hot at the right time. They're extremely well coached, and they play the basketball. They play the game the right way. Dean and Dylan. Dean, I agree with Coach's assessment. Is he may be the top player in the state, and he steps up in big games. You look at what he did last year in the tournament: 18 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot 50% from beyond the arc. And that's in the game against St. Mark's that was, dribble at half court until there's 10 seconds left in the game. So, that includes that game. So, he's an extremely big-time player. This is a team that's extremely well coached. They're going to be a tough out, right? They may have lost Davis Bland. They may have lost some of the key cogs there, but they're going to be an extremely tough out, and they should not be overlooked just because they may not be, 19-1 or 18-2 like in last year. So I'm impressed with this group.
And Nick, one thing when speaking to Coach Kaiser as well was he talked about this year they pride themselves on being a defensive team as opposed to being an offensive team. So this year for the Hillers, it starts on the defensive side.
I mean, you mean to tell me they didn't play defense last year when they beat everybody by 30 points? I mean, was it just because they shot? I know they shot 60%.
I think it's because their offense was so good.
You
make a great point.
The best defense is a good offense, right?
Many times.
Coach hit it on the head with this team is coaching and keeping the role players doing what they need to do and letting their two superstars go. That's going to be key for them, and we've seen it before. They're very well coached. They're very well coached in their roles, and they're a team that's going to not make a lot of mistakes. It's a tough team to play. They really are a tough team to play, and we saw that last year. Regardless of who they lost, they still have a lot of the same key components.
And we saw it again this year on the road at Caravel, a game that the Hillers won. Dean and Dylan Shepard made every field goal except for one in the second half. They scored, I believe, 40 points combined to lead them to victory. Dean, 22.5 points per game. Dylan up over 15.5 points per game. So again, they'll be ready to make a run when you got those two guys on your squad. So the defending state champs are ready after their first round bye. Let's keep it rolling here with the number 12 seed this season. And that's going to be the Polytech Panthers. They come into this one at 16-4, where they will meet the 10-10, 21st seeded Tattnall Hornets. So an interesting matchup here with Polytech and Tattnall, guys. And let's start over here with Mike and Jason. The Tattnall Hornets, kind of an interesting team. They get this spot after a 10-10 regular season, but they've got some talent on that roster as well. Have you guys been able to check out? I know you've seen the Tattnall girls team. What about the boys team?
I have not seen the boys team this year, believe it or not. It's one of the few teams, especially in Newcastle County, that I did not get a chance to see. I do know you're looking at a schedule. It's 2 games against Sanford, 2 games against Tower Hill, and 2 games against Friends. So right now, just off the bat, you're thinking that's 6 games right there against really tough teams. 2 of them ranked in the seeded in the top 8. They always have athletes on that team. Another school where you have multi-sport athletes, so you know you're going to get guys who are athletic. But I have not had a chance to see them. And I see they did play. Del Castle says they won here. They beat Conway League. And so any chance you get a chance to beat a Catholic League team, that's pretty good. That's quality basketball right there. So, but then sorry, Tattle, one of the schools I did not get a chance to see this year.
Jason, 5-5 in their last 10 games. They do have a win over a Del Castle team that had a great season as well. Mike mentioned the 5-1 start, including that Boardwalk Classic championship by defeating Conwell Egan, as he talked about up in Philadelphia. The coach said they hit a little bit of a rough patch during the mid part of the regular season. A lot of tough opponents on that schedule as well, Jason. But what did you see out of head coach Doug Nicholas' squad this year?
Yeah, a young team. A real young team. They got off to that hot start, like you said. Then they had that stretch in the middle of the season where they played some of the top teams in the state and struggled. But they, like you said, coming down the stretch, that nice win against Del Castle. When Tatnall was fighting to get into the tournament, that win helps them get into that 7-way tiebreaker there at the end and finds a way because of their strength of schedule to get them in the tournament. It's a young team, but they have experience. They played some of the toughest teams in the state. But it's going to be tough to go down to Poly and play that team that likes to run and can score at will.
Yeah, you talked about it, Jason. One of the teams we saw last year at the Viking Invitational at St. E's during the holiday season, and I said, whoa, I hadn't heard anything about them coming in, and I saw Gamber and Little and company, and I was like, wow, this could be a team to watch. And here they are this year. They've taken that next step. They grabbed the 12 seed, 16-4, coach, in the regular season for Polytech, and they've got some guys that can light it up offensively.
Talk about a turnaround story. This is a great one. This team rolled through the Henlopen North schedule. They play an up-tempo game. They played a couple teams early in the year out of state and lost to them, but they're good competition. And then their 2 losses in-state were to William Penn and Caravel. Again, 2 teams that are in the playoffs and really good teams. So I think their schedule really benefited from them. They're playing very confidently. They want to play fast. And I think whoever ends up playing, if Polytech advances, you've got to be able to control the tempo. This is a team that wants to shoot the 3. They'll push it. They're very aggressive. They want to have a high multiple possession game. They're not known for their defense, but they have some excellent players. And this is a great turnaround story down there. And it's nice to see Polytech back in the mix.
Nick, I know you've had a chance to see him a few times as well. 14-0 in the Henlopen North Division this year, and talking to Coach John Pierce, he says we're looking forward to making a playoff run.
I'm sure they are. Like Coach said, they had a big turnaround. Little and Gamber are 2 of the top players in the state. I mean, if you watch them play, they are very, very talented. They're not a flashy team. They play small ball a lot. They do like to run, but they also try to make so you're not scoring 100 points on them. They don't like a lot of defense, but they also don't give up a ton of points as you would think. But they're going to be a tough team to play with these 3 that they have. And they have some other supporting players that aren't on here that I'm drawing a blank on. But it's going to be a tough game for Tatnall, especially going down to play at Polytech. And then whoever gets Polytech in the next round, they better be ready.
And Pat, anything stand out to you here before we move on in this matchup between Polytech and Tatnall in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, there's some star-like players in this game, right? You've talked about Little, Gamber, and Brewington. Little's averaging just under 21 a game. Gamber's averaging just over 17 a game. And Brewington is in that top 5 conversation in terms of point guards in the state. He's a guy that plays under control, really controls the tempo of the game, and he doesn't get rattled. We went and did their game against Cape Henlopen, and that game was close for a long while. Like we talked about, Cape really gave them all they could handle in that game. Brewington really stepped up when Darrell Little got into foul trouble in that game and really seemed to calm this thing down. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. And then on the other side, we can't forget about Isaiah Sales. We haven't talked about him yet from Tatnall. He's averaging 14.5 points, 7.5 rebounds per game. He's a blue gold all-star. He really is great. And then Caleb Starks is a sophomore. He's the team leader in 3-point field goals. He's averaging 12 points a game. So, this Tatnall team, they've had some tough losses. They've kind of righted the ship a little bit and playing their best basketball at the best time. This could be a good game. We'll see if Tatnall's able to keep up with Polytech. That's really what it comes down to, is this Polytech team can fill it up.
Yes, they can. They are fun to watch, as everyone alluded to. It's going to be a good one between Tattoo and Polytech in round one. The winner will take on the new 5 seed, and that is Salesianum, guys. I look to my right. I'll go to Jason and Mike for this one. 13-7 in the regular season under head coach Taylor Trevison. We know that gauntlet of a regular season schedule they go through. I believe the first half almost entirely out of state. You've got your Newman, Gorettis, et cetera, that you're playing up in Philadelphia, and then they have a tough in-state schedule to round out that regular season. 13-7, you look at it, you think, above 500, a good record, 6 games over, but then you look at the teams they beat.
And they won 8 of their last 9, including in that Tower Hill, Appo, Middletown, Caravel, and their loss to Sanford. So, that's a good 4-1 record against 5 of the quality teams up there. Finished strong. What I like is they got some bench depth this year. Aiden Montgomery's come off the bench and really has played well for them. Gives them that presence inside. They have the 3 scorers in LJ, Henson, but the freshman Smith has been impressive the last few games. He's really been a difference in the Howard game. He made a couple big 3-point shots in the second half, kind of extended that lead, and they're another team that's very good at the free throw line, and in that is Brandon Buffone, the senior, a very good free throw shooter, and he can run that offense, to help Henson out.
And Mike, obviously they had a run to the state championship game last season. No Justin Mullen here this year for Sally's, but still they get that 5 seed, a first round bye, and are in a position to make a run here.
No Justin Mullen, but they do have Justin Hines, who missed the championship game last year. Not sure it would have made a difference in that one.
Probably not.
They're very, very deep. I think Coach Trevison has done a great job stockpiling some talent there. So you're not relying on one guy to score 20, 22 points a game. They have Hinson, Kareem Thomas, who we have not mentioned, Hines, Johnson.
I like
Buffone
RJ
can shoot
Johnson.
from 3. Yeah, RJ's good. Montgomery gives you a couple points here and there, and he plays some great defense. The atmosphere inside that gymnasium is electric most nights, so it's sometimes if you're not used to that environment and you come in there and it's the kids are hanging off the bleachers at the one end, and you have Guido Schiavi sitting there, the guy's 96 years old, still cheering on the Sal's. It's a great place to watch a game, and it's a great home court advantage for Salesianum, which I think helps them a lot. We mentioned their schedule. The 2 teams that they did play this year, Newman Goretti and Roman Catholic, playing tonight at the Palestra for the Catholic League Championship. So that tells you the quality schedule that Taylor has put together over there. And what he's trying to give these kids a great basketball experience, get the team better, and retain that talent by exposing them to the best possible competition he can. So they're battle tested for sure.
Yeah, I've been impressed with them, each and every time I've had a chance to check them out this year. Coach, we saw them not that long ago in that game against Howard. What stood out to you about the South?
Isaiah Henson. He's playing much better. He's under control. He's making great decisions. This is a player that has outstanding talent. He's shooting the 3 better, but what he's really doing is trying to incorporate his teammates into the game. Early on in that game, he was setting up people. And I'll tell you, a player that I think is a difference maker is R.J. Johnson, the big man.
I agree with you.
He is incredibly athletic for a sophomore. He can step out and shoot the 3, and they're pick and pop with him as a high ball screener. He can go inside. He's got a big frame. He's a football player, so he's tough inside. I think he could be the difference maker, X factor as a sophomore. They're not going to go necessarily as he goes. I think it's Henson, Thomas, and others, and Hines I really like too. They're long. As you guys mentioned, their bench is deep. And I think what I've always been impressed with Sally's, whether it was Mike Gallagher, Brendan Haley, Taylor Trevison, they don't worry about their regular season record as much. They want to get their kids ready for the tournament, and this is a team that I think could win it all. They have terrific talent, they're well coached, they're battle tested, as we've all said, but they've also got 3 or 4 outstanding players in their bench. I mean, I like this guy Swartout that comes off the bench.
Yeah, I know,
Doesn't score a lot, but let me tell you, I'd love to coach this
Tough
dude.
kid.
He is a great defender, draws charges, can score if he wants. So here's a guy that nobody even thinks about, and he could be a difference maker. You can put him in on the other team's best player, and you might see him get shut down well under his average. So they have a lot of versatility. it still is Hinson's team, but they have a lot of great parts, and I think Taylor's done a really nice job of getting this team to improve, as you mentioned about other teams, at exactly the right moment as we get to the tournament.
And Nick, obviously we have Polytech and Tattle. That's going to be a heck of a game in round one. But if the Panthers, the higher seed, were able to advance, could be a fun one. Two different styles there, maybe between Polytech and Salesianum in round two.
I'd pay for that ticket. Don't know if I would get the luxury of getting that game. You guys, somebody would take it from, but no. But no, I mean that would be a power pack game to watch with a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And it, like I said, it would just be fun to watch. You know, I'm sure we're not going to get that game, but we'll figure it out. The kids at Sally's do a good job of streaming too, so you know we'll see what happens in the next round. But you're right. There's a lot of names that you guys just threw out there, and this Sally's team is scary.
Pat, what
in the
anything
playoffs.
stand out to you about Salesian? You heard Coach comment earlier. They said they could win it, and I saw you nod your hand ahead, in agreement there. What do you think about Salesian?
Yeah, I agree with Coach. I think that you look at this team on paper from top to bottom, they can stand up against anybody. The question is, what Salesian team are you going to get? Are you going to get the team that's won 8 of their last 9, or are you going to get a team that was early in the season they're trying to figure out their identity? Some guys maybe weren't stepping up and doing what they were expected to do. So they've been a little Jekyll and Hyde, but they've figured some things out down the stretch so they can continue that hot play, continue to buy into their roles, and play to get. You talked about Hinson, Coach, just kind of buying into his role and kind of it's a new role for him. With Justin last year being really the glue guy that kept everything together, took a little bit of a learning curve, but maybe Hinson's there now. But yeah, they are definitely one of the most, aside from Middletown, they're probably one of the most deep teams in the state, and always play the game the right way, no matter, like Coach said, who it's been the last 30 years over there. Salesiana plays the game the right way. They don't beat themselves. So they're going to be a tough out. I completely agree.
And the game that Coach and I did against Howard, it was, Isaiah Hinson really keyed that second half run for Salesianum, passing, scoring, and that really stood out to me there. And if they could keep that going forward, they are going to be a tough out, as everyone here at the desk has said. So Sally's gets the 5 seed, a first round bye, and they'll have the winner of Polytech and Tatnall. Let's keep it rolling to our next matchup. Number 18 seeded, the Archmere Auks, 13-7 in the regular season. They earned themselves a matchup with the 15-ranked Dover Senators at 14-6. So this is a good one, guys. Archmere, led by head coach Bill Ludlow. They've won 8 of 10 wins over Tatnall and Friends, some tournament teams in the field. Coach, let's start with you here about Archmere. What stands out to you about the Auks?
Well, I love coaching this group. We're not particularly big. Billy Ludlow's done a great job. I love working for him. Nick Sana's over there, who I used to work with at St. Mark's. This is a team that plays very hard. They practice really well. I enjoy every day I go in there. I'm not going to get into our players. We're very fortunate to have a great shooter like Matt McCarthy, who's a junior. Chris Albero is one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around in the high school. Football, I had to coach against Chris, and in basketball, you just really see how he brought this team together. Our senior leadership, and an underrated player on our team is Alex McWilliams. He's our point guard. He is a tough dude. He draws a lot of really difficult assignments. He's got a tough one tomorrow night. I won't tell you who it is. Steph is watching. But, no, it's been a great experience for me over at Archmere. Billy Ludlow does a terrific job. We've got a great group of kids, and I'll let you guys pick us apart.
Mike, over to you. You're living over at Archmere sometime. You have to check them out. What stands out to you about the Auks here this season?
Yeah, I feel like an honorary alum of the academy. Well, I agree with Bill about Chris Albero. He's so much fun to watch. He really, when you watch him play, he just takes charge out there. And he did it in football. Yep. He's doing it in basketball, and he plays center field now. He played center field last year for them.
And he'll play center field again.
He's a natural. He plays shortstop. That's his position, but they need him in center field, and that's where he's going to play. McWilliams also on the baseball team, by the way. They have McCarthy and Albero will do most of the scoring for them, or most of the shooting. AMAC is out there. He doesn't care if he shoots the ball once a game. He wants to distribute and make the plays happen out there. They do get a little bit of inside work from P.J. Blessington, and then they have a little outside shooting from Charlie Malloy. So they have some guys that can shoot. They aren't very tall, but they're not going to make mistakes, and they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to make you play to beat them. They beat Friends this year 35-33,
Wow.
and they really controlled the tempo. If they can do that, that's their key.
And we'll see if they can. And they're going to take on the 15th seeded Dover Senators, Pat. They're 14-6. I had a good phone conversation with Coach Wilson this morning. He was talking about his team and his guys and getting ready for this tournament. And there's usually one guy that kind of stands out above the rest when you look down at this Dover squad.
Yeah, Jaheim Harrell. He's the last of the big three that
That's
they
right.
had there for years. I mean, Amir Height was there, and Tyrone Tolson was there. And now who's left? Mike Lang.
Mike Lang, there you go. A quick little drink break.
Mike Lang left the building.
No, but you know, he's the last guy there, and he really makes them go.
Oh, yeah.
20.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shoots 47% from the field, 77% from the free throw line, and he can score from deep. He can really fill it up from the outside as well. He scored his 1,000th point this year, and in that game scored 50. Right? Who have we seen do that since Bones? I'm not sure if there has been a 50-point game since Bones.
And that was a great clip to watch, too.
I'm telling you, man, he's a bull with the ball. He's a grown man out there playing the game. He's extremely fun to watch, but it's not just him. Point guard Denham Perkins can really fill it up as well. How about these numbers? 14 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and about 3.5 steals per game.
You'll take that.
You'll take that for your number 2 guy for sure. And then they got some height with Abrams and Allen, who are averaging 13 rebounds between the two of them. So they're a team that's got some length, they got some athleticism. Again, guys stepping into new roles this year under Coach Wilson, and then Harrell being one of them, being the last guy around in terms of filling it up. And he's done a good job for this team. So they're a tough team to keep an eye on, and that's going to be the challenge for Archmere. Can they slow Dover down enough to keep this thing in a low-scoring game?
And Nick, you've seen Dover a few times this year, talking to Coach Wilson. Just 2 seniors on this team this year for Dover, so they had to get that leadership from some underclassmen there. What have you seen from the Senators this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all know it goes right to Harrell. You know, he is the battery that makes this team go. But you're right, they don't have a lot of seniors on the team, so he's building for the future with that going in. So this is actually really good for them to be getting experience as young as they are with some of these guys, to have your senior leaders, right? Abrams, a football player too, who's a very good athlete. So he's building for the future here, and it's going to be a good contest against a team like Archmere, because Archmere isn't going to make mistakes, so you're going to learn how to play against a team that plays the game right. But I think the key to this game is, can Archmere slow this offense down? And then I'm looking at these scorers and I'm thinking they have their work cut out for them. I mean, and there's another freshman on here, Javion Dennis, who we saw at Polytech, who can really light it up too. And you know, the kid was his first year playing, and I mean, he's shooting.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly.
he's you know, he's shooting 50% from the floor, and he lit it up against Polytech. So this team's deep, even though they're young, they are deep, and it's going to be really good experience for Coach Wilson and those younger players going into the next season for him.
Coach, closing words on the Dover Senators today?
A really tough matchup for us. So we've got to go on the road, number one. This is an athletic team. They're going to press us from the get-go. They have a variety of presses. They pitch the ball ahead. Everybody has the green light. Harrell is a terrific scorer. He's going to take a lot of questionable shots, but he makes tough shots. So we've got to do a great job defending him. I'm very fond of their point guard, Perkins. He gets anywhere he wants. He sets up his team. But an underrated player is the athlete you were talking about, Kendall Abrams. He's really tough on the boards. We've got to do a great job of blocking him out. Obviously, controlling the tempo is going to be paramount. We can't turn it over, and we cannot get into an up-and-down game with him. So you guys already figured out our game plan. Steph Wilson knows it, too.
I'm sure he knows it, too, yeah.
But it's a great game for our team to go on the road, play a really tough opponent who's well coached, been around. They've got some good players, and I think it'll be a great environment for our kids. Hopefully we'll do what we just practiced for 4 days. We had a great 4 days of practice, but this Dover team is for real, and if they get by us, they certainly have the capacity to win some other games.
You also get to play in probably the best high school gym in,
It
500
is a great-
miles.
That's what I meant for our kids, to get a good
It's
experience.
a great, I mean, that gym is just phenomenal.
It
So
is. They
it
win
is
a
going to be a
chance.
good experience for them. It
COVID
is.
State Championship game was there a few years back. So
Yeah.
again, that shows you what the facility they've got over there at Dover. The winner of this one, they have a tough road ahead as they will take on the 2-seeded Seaford Blue Jays. Pat, they've been fantastic all year long, 19-1. I had a chance to do one of their games at Slam Dunk to the Beach. They got a win down in Lewis during that tournament, a very tough national high school tournament. Henlopen champs, coming off of that Final Four appearance last season, and under Coach Vince Evans, they are right back, ready to make another run to the Bob.
Yeah, they are, and I'll let the other guys kind of talk about some of the players. But I mean, they got 4 or 5 guys that can beat you at any given time, and they're starting to play. And you've heard Coach Vince Evans talk about this in the game that Glenn went down there and streamed. They picked the pace up this year. Who would have thought that you could have picked the pace up anymore? But they did this year, and that's the key for this team. They scored. A half-court game is where you can get Seaford, right? It's a matter of who's going to be able to do it. Is anyone going to be able to step up in the challenge and slow these guys down and force them to play in a half-court? Because that's where they're uncomfortable. A lot of times with this team, though, the talent has prevailed. And they've figured out what their strengths are, and that's why they shoot the 3 ball and they get out in transition. They're an extremely fun team to watch. Yeah. We talked about Salesianum and Middletown. I would say this team is just as deep as those teams. They can be a team that could get hot during a tournament run. Obviously, with a 19-1 record, or 20-1 if you include the Blue Hen Conference game, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
This team is dangerous, and they are a firecracker waiting to go off at any given moment. So, extremely fun basketball watching the Seaford Blue Jays play. I'll be curious to see if they can advance further than they did last year. Obviously, a Final Four appearance last year. So, really, really fun team. And
they're looking to get this time to the state championship. Jason, Pat talked about some of those players. That starting 5 can really light it up for the Blue Jays. One of the most talented starting 5s in all of the state, and it all starts with Brent Ricketts.
Yeah, he averages 17 points a game, 7 rebounds a game. And then I really like Bolden. He distributes the ball, 7.7 assists per game, most 8 assists a game. He gets his teammates involved, and then Ricketts and Wise and anyone else fills it up. Like Pat said, let's see if anyone can slow that offense down. Because if not, like you said, they might take it to that next level this year.
And Nick, you also mentioned Cash Wise, 14.7 points per game, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, almost on triple-double watch there in the high school level. What have you seen from Seaford in that starting 5 and just that squad here throughout the year?
Impressive. I mean, all of them are D1 level guys, man. I mean, they could probably play somewhere in any college around here right now. I mean, they're just that good. Wise is kind of like the backup point, the second point guard for when Bolden isn't facilitating, which again makes them even more dangerous because they have people who can play different positions and get them open. I think one of the most underrated people on this team is Avion Matthews. Yeah. He is a man on the boards, and he gets to the bucket when he wants to get to the bucket and gets fouled. I think that's one big thing that helps them is all these guys out there shooting, but he's under there cleaning stuff up. And, I saw in that first Laurel game when I think he had 26 points. I mean, he was just a force that no one could stop. And he's a big body kid that can play down low.
Yeah. And Bolden and Ricketts can raise up and posterize.
Oh,
yeah. Too.
He did that at Slam Dunk.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, my.
That was a highlight.
Avion Matthews, that dunk was,
Coach, finishing touches on the Seaford Blue Jays, one of the top teams in the state this year. They get the 2 seed.
This is a team that seems to me to be on a mission. They've averaged almost 85 points a game in high school in a 32-minute game. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. They scored over 100 points 3 times. They scored 98 in another game. Their only loss was to, we know, one of the best teams, the number 1 seed, Middletown. That was at home, and that I didn't see the game, so I can't say if that was an outlier or not. 2 really good teams, and it was Middletown's day. They gave up 90 points in that game, so questionable defense against a good team, that might be their Achilles heel. The thing I liked about this team last year when we did them, and I have, in full disclosure, not seen them play this year, they play extremely well together. It looks like a team that's been playing for 6 or 7 years. They know where everybody is. They share the ball, even though they've got guys that can score 20 points. They probably have 4 or 5 guys, and on any given night, 3 or 4 of them can get 20. So they play well together. They're a team on a mission. They want to get back to the Bob, and they want to win it all this year. What I like about them is they can score at all 3 levels. They can drive it, they can shoot the 3, and they can get to the foul line, and they do that a lot in volume. This will be a really tough team to beat, especially early on when they're at home. That's another one of those places that's really difficult. Not only the length of your travel if you're coming down from north, but that's a really neat gym. And in its day, it was rocking, and I'm sure they've got a great community effort backing them. So that's a great thing for that area down there. Great to see Seaford back. Great to see them playing well, and they'll be a really interesting team to follow throughout the championships.
They absolutely will be. That's going to be a team, to circle as they go forward. They get the 2 seed, a first-round bye, and they'll be looking to head back to the Bob here in 2023. Let's move on to the number 23 Hodson Silver Eagles. They grabbed the 23rd spot. They're 12-8 on the regular season. They take on the St. George's Hawks, who are 15-5. Guys, let's start with the Hodson Silver Eagles. You see the graphic on your screen. They are led by head coach Marcus Ellis. 8-2 in the last 10 games. A rematch of the game with St. George's that they lost back on February 14th. 55-53. They started the season 4-6. They went on an 8-2 run to finish the season 12-8, and those 2 losses down the stretch were by a combined 6 points to St. George's and Polytech. So Hodson starting to gel, guys, as they get into a postseason run. Nick, what do you got to say about this?
I mean, I have, full disclosure, I haven't seen them play yet either, but obviously playing a Flight A schedule is tough. You're going to be playing a lot of good teams. Mount Pleasant, St. George's, just a bunch of teams out there that are going to be tough to beat. Is Del Castle still on Flight A?
Oh, yeah.
Del Castle,
Yes.
I mean, you still got,
Penn.
Middletown.
Middletown. I mean,
Appo.
so you know that, I mean, Appo, those teams right there, I mean, and then to win your 8 of your last 10, that's pretty impressive to do that with that type of schedule, because they're playing conference games towards the end of the season. I did get to see St. George's one time. We got to see them against Haverty Grace. Oh, no, I saw them against Middletown, too. That's right. We did get to see them, and that was a tough game against Middletown. But, again, Middletown's your number 1 seed. So, to me, I think this lines up to be a very competitive, evenly matched game. It'll be fun to watch.
Again, in the previous matchup against St. George's, that 2-point loss, Jared Lingham and Cameron Wilson combined for 32 points in that game. So they'll be looking to do something similar here as they try to get some revenge on the Hawks. Mike, have you seen the Silver Eagles?
I have not. I think
Usually you head over there sometime.
I try to get down. I try to get to all of these games, but I ran out of days. I know we talked about on Friday. We talked about they might be the quietest team in the most under the radar team in the tournament this year. Really, was anybody talking about Hodgson before this season? It sounds like Coach Ellis has done a great job in his first season. They've had some big names over the years. That's really not the case this year, but he's obviously getting the job done. And, good for them. It's good to see Hodgson kind of bounce back and get back into the tournament. I know that they missed last year, so a lot of Eagles fans in the area. Maybe there'll be Silver Eagles fans this time. Who knows?
You want a litmus test, Nick? Take a look at 2 games, and then they were losses. But St. George's and Polytech, those are 2. Obviously, they're taking on St. George's. Polytech, we feel, is a dangerous team in this tournament. They lost by a combined 6 points to those 2 teams. So I mean, those are 2 losses out of those 8 and 2 down the stretch in the final 10 games. This team is, you're right. They're probably an under the radar team. Like not a whole lot of people maybe they've kind of flown under the radar. Nobody's really expected Hodgson to have a great year, but they've made something out of it. They've won the tiebreakers to get in, and now they got an opportunity to avenge a 2-point loss. Just 2 weeks ago. So this will be a team to keep an eye on for sure.
And that game against Poly, Jason's kind of our index guy here, but not the Windex guy, the index guy. That's a couple bonus points that they picked up that got them into that tiebreaker and got them into the tournament. So even though they lost the game, they got 2 points out of that, and it really helped them out as far as getting them seeded, getting them into the tournament. That kind of helps. They would have been, looks like they probably would have been in anyway, but bumped them up a little bit. So good for Hodgson.
And then let's look at the flip side here. Your 10 seed St. George's Hawks, 15-5 under head coach Rod Griffin. And again, hadn't really paid much attention to them guys at the beginning of the year. And then you look at the schedule, and they're breaking off some good wins against some good opponents. Yeah. Pat, we had a chance to do that game during Bone's retirement, the Haverty Grace game, that they looked really good at home in that victory. Just talk a little bit about St. George's and what they bring to the table.
They got some length. I mean, they don't really have post players. But they got a lot of wing guys that are lengthy, and that's going to help them on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to be their, the key for them if they want to advance in this tournament is can they cause problems for ball handlers, get deflections, get out in transition to score. They got a few guys that I really like. Rambert and Brakely, 2 seniors. Rambert's averaging 13 points a game, 4-year varsity starter, so he's got a little bit of experience for sure. Brakely, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, does a little bit of everything. He's also a 4-year starter. And Jaden Bull, who's a first-year varsity player, he stepped up pretty well for this team. 11 points per game and 4.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.4 steals a game. He gets a little bit of everything there. But this is a team that, like I said, that their length can really help them, in particular on the perimeter. Can they create deflections to get in on transition? That was clearly their key to Havre de Grace. So, the Middletown game, obviously Middletown kind of matched them in terms of the length and the ability to put the ball in the basket, and they just, weren't able to keep up, so to speak. But yeah, that's going to be the key here for Coach Rod Griffin's group. They could make some noise. I think they could make some noise if they can, again, get out in transition, not rely so much on the 3-point shot, and pick the tempo up in certain games.
So St. George's, again, they will meet Hodson, the 10 versus 23. And the winner of that one gets head coach Gary Lumpkin's squad, the William Penn Colonials, who get that 7 seed. Again, part of that reshuffling in the middle of those top 10 seeds there. So William Penn, 13-7. They grab that 7 spot. Their last game, guys, was February 17th against Dickinson. And, Coach, you're looking at the schedule there. It seems like they added a scrimmage, I believe, against Odessa last week just to kind of stay ready to go.
Well, that's a tough task, especially for a high school team to have that much time off. Obviously, Gary Lumpkin's been around, a really good coach, was a terrific player at William Penn and then at Xavier. So he probably has a good feel for what he wanted to do in this time off, but it's tough to keep the concentration of your players. Yeah. The good news is he's got 3 really solid guys, Sample, Vaughn, and Guy, who I like. We did the game down at Howard. This is a team that can play fast, they can play slow, they've got some scores, they can defend. I think Gary Lumpkin's got them in the right place, and this is a team that's kind of rounding into form. They've had some good wins and a couple tough losses, but I like this team, and I think with Lumpkin coaching them and with all that time, you can almost go back and have a preseason again. Work on your fundamentals, figure out, hey, the last 3 or 4 games, what do we need to get better? Really work at that and then start your prep. And obviously they don't know who they'll play, but they have a pretty good idea. They can prepare for 2 teams. But I think that can be, if you use it correctly, a great advantage to have that much time off. Heal up if that's the case, if you have anybody injured. Work on some of the stuff that you need to get better at. And I'm sure he got the concentration of his players because of that senior leadership.
And Jason, tough schedule for the Colonials, right? You look at it here. They went 6-4 in their last 10, but look at these 6 wins over tournament teams: Conrad, Mount Pleasant, Sally's, Hodson, Poly, and Appo. So like Coach mentioned, they're battle tested. They got some quality wins as well this year.
Yeah, 13-7, strength of schedule gives them that bye. They're only 13 wins, but like you said, a really tough schedule. And the good thing is they got some time off, like Coach said, but at least they're going to get a Flight A opponent in either Hodson or St. George's, a team they're familiar with in the second round and can prepare for. So, and Coach Lumpkin does a good job, and it's a team I would not want to play. Like I think could win it all if they get hot, especially Sample from behind the arc.
Yeah, they've got a lot of talent over there in Newcastle with the Colonials. They are the 7-seeded first-round bye. They're looking to make some noise as well. Our next matchup, 19-seeded Lake Forest at 12-8 in the regular season, taking on the 14-seeded Indian River Indians, 15-5 for IR this year on the hardwood. Guys, let's start with the Spartans, the 19-seed under head coach Ridge Betts. They went 5-5 in their last 10 games. Wins over Woodbridge, Indian River, who are obviously a rematch here, and Cape Henlopen. And so some quality wins for the Spartans here throughout the regular season, and they've got some good players that can light it up scoring-wise well. Coach, want to start here with the Lake Forest Spartans?
Well, I really like this team. This Henlopen South had so many good teams in it that it's like going through the Blue Hen. Flight A. You're going to play great teams. You're going to have to play them away and at home. You get a really good schedule underneath of you. Ridge Betts, a young coach. He's got a veteran, Mike Starkey, a dear friend of mine, who is on his bench and does a great job. His son, Jackson, is a really good point guard, plays well for them, a terrific foul shooter. They've got some good scoring. But I just like this team because they've played a difficult schedule. They're learning how to play together. And I think this is going to be a great matchup because they've played before. You can make those adjustments. The winner maybe doesn't change as much. The loser changes a little bit more. But this is a great matchup. But I like the Lake Forest Spartans. They are well coached and they play very hard.
And now let's talk a little about the Indian River Indians, guys. 15-5 under head coach Devin Mann. 9-5 in that Henlopen South, third in the conference behind Seaford and Laurel. So it's their first home playoff game since 1995 for Indian River, and they are led by the first-team all-conference player Brendan Bradford. 20 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3 steals, guys. He can light it up, Mike.
Yeah, and then the note here says they had neutral sites back then, so the first home playoff game ever.
That's right.
For Indian River. So congratulations to them. They have a beautiful facility down there. It should be. I hope they fill it up down there tomorrow night for this Henlopen South rematch. One of these teams that I haven't seen. I don't know how many times they traveled outside of, outside up farther than Kent County, but obviously this Brendan Bradford can play the game. It looks like they have some other guys, Jamal Jones, Rashad Hopkins. These guys are all conference players. So there's some talent there for Indian River. I did not make the trip to Dagsboro this year, so I didn't get a chance to see them play, but obviously they can play a little bit.
Conference playoff games.
Yep.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, these guys have played each other throughout the season, and they get a chance to play each other on the big stage to move on. Anytime you get 2 conference opponents going at each other in the playoffs, Nick, I think it makes for a great atmosphere and a great game. So I think this one could be one of the games of the first round because of that.
Yeah.
2 teams that are familiar with each other. Looking forward to seeing how that one goes.
And the winner will get the 3rd-seeded Howard Wildcats, 14-4 under head coach Rayshawn Matthews Sr. 6-4 in their last 10 wins over Appo, Sanford, and William Penn. Some losses, Middletown twice and on Saturday in that championship, and then a loss to Salesianum. R.J. Matthews, first-team all-conference at 12.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, and just under 3 assists, also 3 steals. And you got Xavier Richards-Powell. He was also a first-team all-conference player, guys, at 8.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds. And then a guy that I've been real impressed with, coach, has been Marcus Johnson, the second-team all-conference. Big fella underneath, 7 points per game, 3 rebounds.
He's a fun guy to watch. He reminds me of R.J. Johnson. He's a lefty. He's not quite as tall as R.J. from Salesianum, but he's got a big body. He moves extremely well for a big man. He's got great hands, a marvelous long-range shot, and he's a lefty as well. When you talk about R.J. Matthews, coach's son, he's a quarterback in football. He's a quarterback on the basketball court. He runs the team. He can score dynamically. This team is deep. They can play an up-tempo style that is really difficult to deal with. They love to press you. They like to be chaotic in their defense, create a lot of opportunities. They're trying to turn defense into offense, so they have a variety of ways to score. Coach Matthews not afraid to go to his bench. He's got the twins, the Richard Powells, that can really play. So this is a deep team that I think is going to be difficult to deal with because they can shoot the ball so well and they create a lot of activity with their defense.
And they're going to look to get out and run.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, this is a team that is really interesting, and I got to give credit to this group because you lost a lot of scoring with
Hollingsworth and
Brown,
yeah.
both of them. I mean, Hollingsworth averaged over 20 points a game last year, and they've been able to step up, go 14-4, and get a top 3 seed in the tournament. A guy that I really like is DeShields, the point guard. 8.5 points per game. He also distributes the ball around quite a bit. Plays good defense, has grown, so he's got some length to help him on the defensive side of the ball. He's kind of the wild card for that team. Obviously, you're going to hear about Richards-Powell, you're going to hear about Matthews, you're going to hear about Johnson. Those guys really do a great job. But I'm telling you, DeShields is kind of the key that makes them go. He kind of keeps everybody under control. And they're a fun team to watch. They, like Coach said, they like to turn you over and get out in transition. So it'll be fun to see them play.
Another team to keep an eye on here as we progress. That'll take us to the last matchup between number 22 Woodbridge at 9-11 and number 11 Laurel at 15-5. Guys, Woodbridge under head coach Julius Cannon, 5-5 in their last 10 games. They have a win over Lake Forest in the playoff field. They're led by Bruce Mosley, Seatric Stones, and Tracy Johnson. And we know a little bit more about the Laurel Bulldogs under head coach Kevin Walmsley, 7-3 in their last 10 with wins over Woodbridge, Indian River, Lake Forest. And their 3 in-state losses, 2 came to Seaford and that 1 to Caravel. So they've had an impressive regular season, and it all starts, Pat, with Dontarius Jones.
Yeah, he's really incredible, man. He's one of the top guys in the state in terms of scoring. He's 22 points per game, but it's usually effortless. It's usually like, holy crap, this guy's got 20 points out of nowhere. It just seems so easy for him. 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He's been great. And Corey Mumford, the big guy, number 0, 10.5 points, 11 rebounds per contest. And then on the other end, one of my favorite players, guy that I really stood up for last year, was Bruce Mosley. This kid is really, really impressive. Really helped carry a team that really only played 6 guys last year. He's had another great year this season. So this should be another great conference battle. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one goes.
Another Henlope and South battle. The last two first round matchups we talked to, 4 Henlope and South teams.
And again, the winner of this one, guys, will get the number 6 seeded Appo Jaguars at 15:05 under head coach Tom Purse. 5-2 in Flight A, the 4th time in a row that Appo has secured a bye in the tournament. They got some good quality wins over the tournament field, or 5 teams in the tournament field. And Coach Christian Barksdale, Daniel Harvey, Eric Mathang, the list goes on. They've got some players over there down in Middletown as well.
Tom Purse has a great team. This is a team, much like Sally's, that I think can make a run deep into this tournament. They're loaded with talent. I'm a big fan of Riley Busby, the sophomore that comes off the bench. He's a terrific shooter, a high basketball IQ player. He really gives them some definitive style when he comes in there. But when you talk about athleticism, Christian Barksdale is terrific. They're long, they're athletic, and they're experienced, and they played a very difficult schedule. So this is a team, there are 3 or 4 teams that I think have played a schedule that, boy, it would be really tough, and they've emerged through it, with only a couple of losses. And this 15-5 Appo team could beat anybody on any given night.
Nick, closing words on this matchup here, with the potential of Appo getting the winner.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough coming up to play and up at that environment. Appo's a very nice gym, but it's kind of small too. But they pack the house in there. It's going to be a tough environment. 2 teams coming from downstate, coming upstate, really haven't had much success up here this year either. So it's going to be tough coming in to play that Appo team. And like I said, they're very well coached, and they have a bunch of people that can score. They have some size, not even showing on here besides the guys on here, but they have another carrier who does a lot down low for them and is a nice role player for this team.
Well, there you have it, a boys DIAA 2023 bracket breakdown. Again, special thanks to the coach Bill Harmon for joining us, and Nick Halliday and Pat Garanis as well, and Mike Lang and Jason Winchell. You guys are going to stick around for a short breakdown the girls bracket as well. Again, we are up against the clock. Apologize for the boys taking so long to everyone at home. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, it's time to quickly dive into the girls side of things, and we'll wrap it up live all here from Wilmington. So again, Coach, thank you. Nick, appreciate it. Pat, for coming on, and I'll see you guys here in a second. We'll be right back.
The 2023 Atlantic 10 Women's Basketball Championship returns to Wilmington, Delaware, March 1st through 5th. It's another thrilling week of women's hoops at Chase Fieldhouse. With world-class restaurants and museums and the historic riverfront, Wilmington is the place to be the first week of March. Experience the 2023 A10 Women's Basketball Championship on the riverfront in Wilmington, Delaware, March 1st through 5th. For tickets, visit SeatGeek.com.
Still searching for cheap gas prices? Dump the pump and ride DART. You can DART to your destination for only $4 all day. Let DART do the driving while you enjoy our free Wi-Fi available on all buses statewide. While scrolling through your favorite apps, don't forget to download DART's free transit app for real-time bus information and enjoy the convenience of contactless fare payment through DART Pass. So what are you waiting for? Dump the pump and try transit. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
A new beginning, a second chance. Call it what you want, but this is what never giving up looks like. This is what finding someone who believes in you looks like. I thought Goodwill was just a store until a friend told me about Train to Gain through Goodwill's Job Resource Center. After 5 years away, I had a lot of self-doubt and fear about my future. But Goodwill had my back, and today, I love where I work. They matched me with an employer who believes in second chances, and now I have a new start thanks to Goodwill.
To learn more about Goodwill's career development opportunities, call today.
Looking to jumpstart your teaching career in Delaware? And make up to $50,000 with full benefits? Then look no further than Kingswood Early Learning Academy, where you can make a difference and earn the salary you deserve.
In Wilmington, the DETV studios here at Delaware Live Sports. Nick Alessandrini alongside Jason Winchell and Mike Lang, and we are here to talk a little girls basketball breakdown here in the final half of our total bracket breakdown, guys. Let's start up top with 17 Red Lion. They're 16-4. They're going to take on the 16-seeded St. George's Hawks, who are 13-7. Red Lion led by head coach Tom Barry. They went 12-1 in their last 13 games. St. George is 7-3 in their last 10 games. Should be a good one to get things started.
Just looking at the schedules, Red Lion took a loss to DMA. DMA's having an outstanding year. We'll talk about them a little later. And in St. George's, 1,000-point scorer, Ilya Richardson. And a tough schedule with Caravel, Archmere, Appo, Ursuline, Dover, Woodbridge. So Hawks coming in battle-tested, ready to go. Should be a good one. And these teams aren't too far apart from each other,
That's
Nick.
right.
Only about a 15-minute ride from Red Lion across the bridge to play St. George's. So should be a good one down there, as they say, below the canal.
That's right, Jason, but a tough matchup for the winner of this game because they get the top overall seed in the tournament. That is the #1 ranked Sanford Warriors at 16-3 under head coach Marcus Thompson, who does such a good job year in and year out with the Warriors. Their only loss in their last 12 came to the Academy of Notre Dame back in early December. They beat Ursuline in that big game on February 10th. Dallas Pierce, 17 points per game. The list goes on. Zai Kilgo really runs the show for the Warriors.
Yeah, she really has. 12 points a game, point guard. She sets everybody else up. Great free throw shooter. And then Dallas Pierce, like you said, heading to UMass, averaging 17 points a game. And, they're, like you said, they're hot right now. 11 of their last 12, but the only loss to an out-of-state team, Academy of Notre Dame. And they beat Ursuline on the road at Ursuline on February.
Again, Dallas Pierce, as Jason mentioned, 17 points per game for the senior. Zai Kilgo, 12 points per game. Jada Snow, 7.5. Tyler Edwards at 8.5. And Ellie Carter-Soriano at 8. Naomi Allen adds 4 for the Warriors. So they're the top seed. They'll be looking to head back to the state championship game. A tough one for them in overtime last year against the Caravel Bucks. They're going to look to head back to the Bob Carpenter Center. We'll keep it rolling with #9 Smyrna at 14-6, guys. They're going to be taking on the 24 seed, the Hillers from Tower Hill at 12-8. Tower Hill 5-5 in their last 10. They're led by head coach Keith Bloom, and they get the 14-6 Smyrna Eagles led by head coach Enrique Gums. When you look at the Smyrna Eagles, guys, it starts with the sophomore point guard Kai Burnett.
Yeah, 15 points a game, and Jay Rivera at 13.1. And they have a lot of different scoring options here. Maya Ellerby, Skylar Curley, Delaney Pierce. A lot of girls who can put the ball in the hoop. And they're going to be playing at home, which is good. Tower used to playing in that little bandbox, Weaver Gymnasium. Right. They're going to be tough. Tower Hill bringing another 1,000-point scorer, Caitlin Smith, who a multi-sport athlete. And they also have a couple other girls who can play, Sophie Aird and Tessa Mullen. So they have some girls who can play a little bit. It should be a good one down there in Smyrna, even though it's a 24-9. I think the 24-9s on both sides, girls and boys, pretty good.
And Smyrna coming off a big win over Appoquinimink.
That's right.
To end the regular season.
So hot for them, but another team coming off a win is the #8 AI DuPont Tigers under head coach Lucky Price, and they take home a big win on Saturday in that Blue Hen Championship. So they get that first round bye, and they've won 18 straight, guys.
Yeah, they're a really fun team if you haven't seen them. They're a team that has the green light. We talked about it in the boys game. This team likes to score. They're not afraid to shoot the ball. Every shot's available for them. And, a very, very great team.
My trader.
If you haven't seen my play, this is your opportunity. She's a senior, can really put the ball up. She controls that everything for them, the pace, the shots. Without they kind of go my like Bill used the word battery for one of the players. My the battery for Lucky's team, and 19 wins is 19 wins for AI. It may have been a little bit down here for Blue Hen Flight B, but AI did the job. You can only play the teams that are on your schedule, and they won all but one of them. So congratulations to Rob Price and his team, and they earned a bye and a home game on Friday.
AI gets that 8 seed after being crowned your Blue Hen champions. That takes us to our next matchup, and that is the number 13 seeded Polytech Panthers. They're in action with the girls and the boys as well as unified here this year, and they get the 20 seeded Howard Wildcats coming in at 14-6. Curtis Clack leading the way for the Wildcats from Howard. They're 8-2 in their last 10, including a win over Middletown, and it starts with Kanaya Murray Chambers, 224 total points on the season. Then right behind her is Glory Forby and Boonway with 173 points on the season. Polytech 15-5. 5. They are led by Kyle Taylor, their head coach. They've won 9 and 10 with their only loss coming to Cape Henlopen, who has been red hot on the girls' side of things. Beat Smyrna twice and Dover. They graduated only 2 players from last year's team, and the team last year 5 and 15 guys, 15 and 5 this year, Jason.
A 10-game turnaround. That's impressive stuff. And like you said, only 2 seniors last year, so a lot of experience came back. How about this? Kaylee Hopkins averaging a double-double, 14.5 points per game, 11.9 rebounds per game. Henry, another one, 12.1 points per game. So a very balanced Polytech team.
That's right. They got people that can light it up, and they're going to be ready to go. They're excited to be back in the tournament, Mike, because the winner of Polytech and Howard will get a very tough 4-seeded Tatnall Hornets team. Only in-state loss to Sanford, Mike. They're led by Emma Kirby.
Well, Emma Kirby's kind of do it all. We've been talking about 1,000-point scores. There's one more, another 1,000th point that came from the free throw line. Emma controls the inside against every team she's played. They've only had a couple of hiccups this year. A new coach, Erica Brown. Erica's done a great job in there.
That's right.
Emma is not alone. Cherish Bryant runs that show from the point position. They have Bree Gaudier who can shoot from the outside. So they're not a one-person show. They're not exceptionally deep, but they do have a few players that come in off the bench. So as long as they stay out of foul trouble, they should be in any game that they're in.
Again, 16-1 versus other schools in the state of Delaware. That only in-state losses, both of them coming to the Sanford Warriors. So Tatnall looking to make a run here. They get the 4 seed and a first-round bye. That takes us to the 21-seeded Middletown Cavs at 12-8, led by head coach Brendan Mann. They're going to take on the 12-seeded Delmarva Christian Royals, guys. 17-3 for the Royals this season. Middletown, the first time since 2008 that they've earned a bid. And again, last year, first season for Brendan Mann, who made the move from Phoenix, Arizona, coming here to the East Coast, now leading the way for Middletown, who were a 2-win team when he got there.
Yeah, let's talk about softball standout and now Vernon University commit Summer Montgomery, and Middletown volleyball standout and Grove City commit Elena Dorsell. They came out to the program to give this Middletown team depth and really help them, like you said, get it into the state tournament first time in a while. So, that's impressive stuff. Shows that these kids can do more in one sport, and it's great to see.
I like Sinai Savage, the double-double. She really is their presence inside. Not many players who can stop her. Delmarva Christian, if you look at them, you're looking at Ainsley Bell. I've been watching her since she was a freshman. 682 points. I imagine that's this season.
Yeah, just this season. And that's if we have missed a few games. You never know with the box score.
You never know. Ainsley can put the ball up and will from anywhere. She can hit shots from all over the court. Journey Handy gives them another scoring option, so you can't just key on Bell. And they're going to be the home team in this one. They have their little gym down there in Georgetown, but it gets kind of loud down there. And they love the Royals, and they're in the playoffs. Middletown, first time since 2008, and congratulations to the Cavs. The boys team, number 1, getting all the press. How about the girls? They're in the tournament. Delmarva Christian, a fine year academically, or athletically, I'm sure academically too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And, continues into the basketball. The girls had a great volleyball season, and now they had a great basketball season as well.
Under head coach Jedediah Roach. A lot of in-state action in their regular season schedule for Delmarva Christian, so 7-3 in their last 10. But of course, a matchup with Middletown here in round number 1. The winner will take on your defending state champions, number 5 Caravel Bucks under new head coach Larry Banks. 14-6 in the regular season, and talking with Coach Banks, the goal has always been a state championships. The beginning, it was to defend that title, to get back there, and you kind of think when talking to him, maybe you lose India Johnson, the freshman who's playing now off the bench for Towson, already getting minutes for the Tigers. People maybe thought of this as a rebuild season for the Caravel Bucks, but not this year. They get a 5 seed in a first round bye.
Yeah, no, not this year, and they're led by their captain Jairza Crawford, and transfer guard Speedy Wilson led the team in 1 and 2 most offensive stats. So those two are the glue that holds that team together.
And Mike, again, Caravel will get the winner of Delmarva Christian and Middletown. So let's keep it moving now to the 15-seeded St. Elizabeth Vikings at 10-10. They will welcome in the 18-seeded Early College High School Hornets, who again, maybe not a lot of people know much about. They are 17-3 in the regular season. St. E's 10-10. Early College led by head coach Eric Winston, and Zuri Matthews is their leading scorer. And then Joe Parenti leading the way for the St. Elizabeth Vikings. And the girls 10-10 grabbed that 15 seed.
Yeah, this is like a blue blood against newcomer like Grand Canyon playing against Kentucky or something like that. Congratulations to the Hornets, their first tournament bid. 2 of their losses came to Woodbridge, so they did well inside the Henlopen South. Racked up some wins. All those win points is going to get them in. It's a tough assignment they have going to the St. E's Center. It's a little bit different environment. St. E's played through some adversity this year.
A lot of injuries.
Some injuries. Farrah White out for the season. Justison out for the season. So they have Erica Huggins, one of my favorite players to watch. She does everything. She dribbles. Now Farrah's not there. Yeah. She's bringing the ball up sometimes. She scores. She rebounds, averaging 20 points and 16 rebounds a game, along with a couple of steals, blocks, and assists. So Erica does a little bit of everything for that team. She's not alone. Milan Paulin, Ariel Garcia kind of came on the scene this year, giving a little outside shooting. Then Malia Stevens joined the team about halfway through. They're still learning. It's not been a typical St. E's year, but they're still not a team you want to overlook.
That's right, 10-10 the regular season. They get the 15 spot. They'll take on 18-seed Early College High School, and the winner of that gets one of the top teams in the state, the Ursuline Red Raiders, who have just been electric all year long. That only loss coming back on February 10th to the Sanford Warriors. Have at it here with the Ursuline Raiders, guys, before we move on. The second seed, they get a first-round bye, and, of course, one of the teams you do not want to see.
Tough place to play. The gym's not big. The students love that team. They come out every night, and it's going to be loud. They have the 2 8th graders, Taylor Brown, Gigi Banks, already getting college offers. I think one of the keys on that team, though, is the senior, Hannah Kelly. She really holds everything together for that team. If you talk to Coach John Noonan, Hannah's usually the glue person. They're kind of they're an integral part of the team, but sometimes they score, they don't score. Hannah gets points and rebounds and everything else. She's out there most of the night, kind of trying to settle everything down and make sure these girls are playing the Ursuline way. And that's a tough place to play, and they're ready to go. Of
course, led, by head coach John Noonan. Quite the shoe game Coach Noonan has over there on the sideline as well. So Coach Noonan doing a great job this year.
And some Pearl Jam.
That's right, and Pearl Jam. They get the 2 seed here for the Ursuline Red Raiders. Let's keep it moving here to Delaware Military Academy, your 10 seed, welcoming the 23 seed, the Charter School of Wilmington, coming off a nice run last year in the playoffs for Coach Eileen Volz and the Force. And then head coach Jeremy Jean leading the Seahawks to a 15-4 regular season, and they get that 10 seed. You look down at the Force, 4-6 in their last 10. Danielle Conzi, I believe, 191 total points, and then Veronica Sanchez-Wright with 117 on the season. For DMA, the team finished 15-4 with only 2 losses in the state to St. E's and to Archmere. Lost that one by 8, and they are led, of course, by Maya Hill, first team all-conference, Tavi Prado, second team all-conference, Sophia Manuel, second team, and Marisa Edivane, third team all-conference for DMA.
Yeah, DMA, Maya Hill leads the team 13 points per game. A very good defensive team. They really held people below their scoring average when they played them. A very defensive-minded team, 15 wins, like you said. There are only 2 in-state losses to Archmere and St. E's, and by a combined 13 points. So a very strong DMA team.
So Charter and DMA in your 23 versus 10. The winner of that one will get the Appoquinimink Jaguars, led by head coach Kevin Smith. They were 16-4 in the regular season. They've won 7 out of their last 10. They lost that Blue Hen title game on Saturday to AI, a tough battle, 53-45 to the Tigers, and they are led by Kyla Reed, Alyssa Cresto, and Deja Martin.
They got scoring up and down, with Martin, with those 3, Martin, Cresto, and Reed. What I liked when I saw them against AI on Saturday, they play a disciplined kind of game. They like to set up the offense and create good looks they like to shoot threes. And, Cresto and Reed can really, all 3 of them, they're 3-point shooters. Yep. They don't have a lot of height in that team, but they're going to be tough to play. they usually generate a lot of offense. Only 45 against AI. Maybe the shots just weren't falling for them, but it's going to be a tough game for whoever has to venture down there to Appo on Friday.
Again, Appo, both boys and girls in the tournament again this year. And I think as well as Unified back. And I think they got the third seed in the Unified bracket as well. So Appo, great year all around on the hardwood. They'll look to continue that on the girls' side of things. And let's head us to our next matchup. 19 seeded the Dover Senators at 9-11. They get the Spartans from St. Mark's, your 14 seed at 13-7. Dover led by Jahi Davenport. They got a win over St. George's this year. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're led by Sarah Ziana Benson with 111 total points on the season, and Ashton Torbert with 96 total points on the year for Dover. And then you look at the Spartans, 13-7 under head coach Jim Friel, 4-6 in their last 10. But they are a defensive team, right? They're not going to light it up score-wise, Jason.
This is going to be one of those games where first team to 30 might win it. It's going to be both teams play outstanding defense. It's going to be interesting. Lauren McDonald has stepped up for St. Mark's this year. Roy's had a good year, as along with Sophia Buffone, just a freshman.
That's right.
And
two Sophias over there with the Spartans now.
Yeah, there's actually
third
another Sophia,
one.
Yes. Sophia Karch.
Correct. So a lot. But this St. Mark's team, they can play defense, and they're probably one of the better defensive teams in the state, along with Lawrenceburg.
And again, you look down talking to Coach Friel, they held a lot of those teams to their lowest scoring totals of the season during the regular season. They'll look to continue that in the playoffs, and they want to get to the free throw line. A great free throw shooting team, and they cause a lot of steals, need to capitalize off of them. That's going to be the Spartans' goal in Game 1 against Dover. The winner, though, you talk about the top two seeds in Sanford and Ursuline. It doesn't get much easier with the third seed, and that is the Cape Henlopen Vikings. 19 straight wins, fellas, since starting 0-2. They're on a 19-game win streak. It's the best in-season winning streak that bested their 15-game win streak back in 2021, and better than the 17-game win streak that they had that ended the 20 and into the 21 season. So they are red hot right now, are the Vikings. They are led by freshman Amalia Fruchman, as well as Hayden Hudson. Faith Ray going to be their leading scorer. What do you guys know about the Vikings?
They're tall.
Very young
they're
team.
They're really good. To get past Hudson and Fruitman, you have, the 6 foot and 6'1" in the middle. St. Mark's has some girls with height. Bella Prado, Tavi's sister, is expected back for the tournament. I was talking to Bella last week. They have Ray Johnson, who can play inside a little bit. They have to get by Dover first. But how do you keep the ball? If you keep it out of the bigs, then you get out to Faith Ray, and she's at 15 points a game. So Cape, 19 straight wins. You don't win 19 games in a row unless you're doing something right. I don't care who you're playing, and that's a pretty good team. And Pat Woods does a fantastic job down there at Cape. He's really elevated that program the last few years. They were in the right direction, and Pat has really just turned it up a notch.
How about sophomore Hayden? 180 rebounds this season, for a school record passing Applewhite.
And that's the thing, guys, right? We saw Makai Applewhite, what a player she was for Cape Henlopen. But you look at this team has broken records. Amalia Fruitman, the 6-foot freshman, single-season block record with 66. You talked about Hayden Hudson, the rebound record, 177. And sophomore Faith Ray, 64 three-pointers, the most since the 43 by Denia Cannon. So she has been spectacular. They've won 19 straight. They get the 3 seed and a first-round bye. That takes us to the bottom of the bracket. 11 seeded, the Woodbridge Blue Raiders will welcome the 22 seed. Not a far drive for the Seaford Blue Jays at 9-11. Seaford led by head coach Ronise Williams. She said it's been a difficult season from some of the previous years, but we've gotten through it, and she is proud of the squad they have down there at Seaford. It starts with Amira Tingle, the all-conference player 2 years in a row. She leads the team in every category except for blocks. 21 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 3 steals for Amira Tingle. And then defensively, they're holding teams to around 40 points per game, and that starts with Kimora Cornish-Bain and Jordan Evans on the defensive side for the Seaford Blue Jays.
Well, they're going to have to play some defense against Woodbridge when you're talking about Reagan Robinson, Peyton Keeler, and those two with the scoring. Tiana Neal also adds a little bit, but Robinson and Keeler, it's like 1 and 1A as far as scores go for Coach Isaiah Robinson. That's Reagan's dad. She's been filling it up for years. Keeler, these are 2 names that you should know if you're a girls basketball fan in Delaware. They can really play. Seaford is going to need another big game from Amira Tingle and some others in order to battle. They've played each other twice this year, so there's no secrets between the Blue Jays and the Blue Raiders.
That's right.
There's a lot of blue.
And the Blue Raiders, guys, 8-2 in their last 10, 17-3 on the regular season, Jason. They played Cape Henlopen in that title game, 31-30, a tough loss to a red-hot Viking team.
Yeah, and
so they're looking good.
They're lost to Ursuline.
There you go, right? That says it all.
You know, so, and Caravel, I think, was one of their losses too. So, I mean, their losses are to very good teams, and they'll battle you, and they're a very good team.
And the winner of that one, a tough matchup as well. Your final team receiving that first round bye, the 6th-seeded Archmere Hawks at 16-4 under head coach Dan Bassani, 8-2 in their last 10. 16-4 in the Diamond State Conference champions, guys. The first conference title in 8 years for the Hawks. They won their Hope bracket at the Viking Invitational, so it seems like success all around this year for Archmere.
Well, they played Polytech in their first round game at the Viking. Then they played a team, Damascus High School out of Maryland. I think Dan Pizzani's done a fantastic job out there at Archmere. They are in every game. They have Lucy Oliver is one of the best players I've seen. She's only a junior, so she'll get to do it again next year. And they have some height with Sarah Denning and Lucy. Outside, Lydia Scarpacci is the point guard, and they can do a lot of different things, but they love to go inside to Oliver and Denning. And they need to shoot from outside. They're going to bring out a Bryn Bastion Pastor, who's a little bit of a sharpshooter, and Bridget Malloy, who has a brother on the big boys team. Bridget Malloy, a freshman, has also been filling it up for the Hawks. So they got a lot of talent, and it's been a good year up there at Archmere.
Right. Oliver was the co-player of the year in the Diamond State Conference, right. And I'm sure she's going to be a first-team all-stater the way she's played, averaging 15 points a game, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block.
Well, there you have it again.
And a pear tree.
Archmere, your 6th seed, they receive a first-round bye. Quickly, guys, before we wrap it up, it's been the talk all year. Sanford and Ursuline, your 1 and 2 seeds. Is there any outside shot that a team besides those two can make a run for a title in the girls' bracket here in 23?
The bottom half, you got Cape and Archmere, who's going to look to Archmere had a chance to play Ursuline during the year. Cape's on a roll, and the thing about Ursuline, 2 8th graders playing at
the first state tournament.
Yeah. So how did they respond? A young team. My matchup, I think it's going to be Ursuline and Sanford, but I wouldn't rule out them on the bottom half, and Tatnall they've lost twice to Sanford. They get a rematch with them, but don't forget Caravel. They're in that top half too. They're the defending state champs. They beat Sanford last year in that championship game. So I think it's going to be Ursuline and Sanford, but I think they have some tests to get there, and they're going to have to pass those tests to get there.
Mike, final thoughts on the girls' bracket?
It's a little top-heavy, but I think there are Ursuline and Sanford, everybody's going to be penciling them in already for March. Was that March 10th, I believe? And but don't overlook a team like Cape Henlopen. They won 19 straight. Tatnall, if they can finally get, I think they're the 4 seed, so they'd have to get by Sanford and Caravel first. So there are some tough assignments in there. Cape and Archmere, if they were both to advance, there's some good games on the horizon. And we're just the lucky guys who get to go out and watch them for a living, right? So it's a lot of fun.
It's going to be a fun week of basketball and into the month of March here in the state tournament. It's going to be some fun. All the action getting underway tomorrow night for the boys at 7, and then the girls follow with the first round on Wednesday. So for Nick Alessandrini, Jason Winchell, and Mike Lang, thanks for tuning in to DETV and Delaware Live Sports for your 23 bracket breakdown for boys and girls basketball. We will see you next time. Go out and check out some games this week, everybody.